Okay, so it looks like people joining has slowed down a little bit. So thank you again for joining our second virtual insurance Tableau user group. Today we have Sheila Kelleher from Prudential and Sarah Weber from American Family Insurance. They're going to share a little bit with us about their Tableau journeys at their respective companies. So Sheila's going to start off first. We'll have about a 20-minute presentation, and then we will hold Q&A until the end. I will ask that you use the Q&A feature in Zoom instead of just using chat. That'll make it easier for us to manage all of the questions. So feel free to type in those questions as they're presenting, and then we'll address those at the end of each presentation. So Sheila's going to go first, followed by Sarah. I'm Stephen Carter, by the way, one of the co-leaders of the Insurance VTUG. After the two presentations, we'll have some announcements from the other leader, Aaron Ginn, about some future meetings. So with all that said, I'm going to pass it over to Sheila.
Good afternoon, everyone. Okay, I'm going to share my screen. Please let me know if you're having difficulty seeing my screen. Thank you for joining today. I'd like to talk to you a little bit about embedding Tableau dashboards within Salesforce. I'd like to give you a little bit of background first. We embarked on a project with our wholesalers, our life insurance wholesalers in the field, to find out some of the capabilities that would be helpful to them to make it easier for them to interact and do business with us. One of the things that these capabilities kind of ran the gamut across not only technology capabilities, but also process improvements. But one of the big asks was around business intelligence and reporting. What they said to us is, we want more data and we want much easier access to it. We don't want to have to come and ask people for data. We want self-service, and we want easy ways to get to that data. So we thought that one of the applications that they're used prolifically is Salesforce. So we thought maybe it makes sense to try to integrate some analytics within that platform. It's something they're already familiar with, and we'd have the opportunity to make it immediate and contextual when they're doing their work within the Salesforce application. So we partnered with Slalom Consultants, who assisted us in the development of this, and we developed some introductory embedded dashboards within Salesforce. So I'd like to bring up my test Salesforce application. For those of you who are already on Lightning, I do apologize. We're not quite there yet, so you'll notice my screen is still the classic view of Salesforce. So the first of two embedded dashboards that we introduced to them was what we call the contact metrics dashboard. So they'll pick out a contact, which in our application is a specific financial advisor, either one of our captive producers or a financial advisor with an institution that we do business with, or a broker general agency. I will pick this individual. And the top part, and as I scroll down, you'll see kind of the classic view of some information in Salesforce. This middle block here, what we call contact metrics, is where we've embedded this Tableau dashboard. So the starting view, this is test data, by the way, so very, very light and simple. This gives some activity information starting out for this particular financial advisor that we have logged in Salesforce. One of the questions I get asked frequently is, if you're presenting Salesforce data here, are you running this dashboard live against Salesforce? The answer is no. we decided that we didn't have a need to have this data refreshed on an up-to-the-minute basis. And because of the complexity of the Salesforce data model and some concerns about performance, we instead decided to take an extract of data out of Salesforce on a daily basis, create a Tableau data extract, and that is what is behind this first dashboard that you see in the workbook that's embedded here. So this workbook is presented, there's a visual force page here, and there's actually a hyperlink or a URL to this particular dashboard. The dashboard sits on our on-premise Tableau server. And I'll bring it up, just what the hyperlink looks like from your perspective. Just the server is very simple. The server, the name of the actual workbook, the view, and then some parameters indicating that we're embedding it. And we're also passing here some parameters to filter the content of the dashboard. We want this to be filtered to just the individual whose page we've brought up in this context section. How we do that is we pass as a parameter a unique identifier, a Salesforce identifier, in addition to a national producer number or identifier to help us filter the data that's then presented for this particular contact. Over here to the left, you'll see a report menu. This allows me to navigate without actually using tabs. It allows me to navigate to other dashboards within this workbook. I'll pick this one. Now, this data actually comes from a completely separate data extract. This is some of our, comes from an extract of our sales data. So we're actually pointing to multiple data extracts from this single workbook, but it's not apparent to the user that that is what's happening. The dashboard, you could interact with it just like other Tableau dashboards. If they wanted to see just guaranteed life, they could click. An action takes place to then filter the other the sales over time, as well as a policy listing down here at the bottom. Now, I will say we will not win any Jedi Tableau awards for these dashboard designs. They're very simple, but that is very purposeful. This is a really introductory foray into embedded dashboards, and the community that we're releasing these to are not analytics individuals. Some of them may not even realize without some assistance that the dashboards are filterable. So we didn't want to overwhelm them with too many visuals, too much interactivity. What they had before this was basically a series of Excel spreadsheets, many of which they had to request. They could not get on demand by themselves. So this is actually a vast improvement from their perspective. So just to show you a little bit more about how the actions are working. So if I click here, I'm now within Tableau Desktop. You can see the actual workbook. If I click on Dashboard Actions, you can see that there are some menu actions associated with this little graphic right here. So if I click one of them, you can see that it's a menu action that is actually used to filter the other views, and it again passes as a filter that national producer number that I alluded to. So that's how we're able to move from the initial dashboard to subsequent dashboards and actually also filter the data on those subsequent dashboards. And as I mentioned before, we have several underlying data sources under here, as well as our sales and our inventory, which is within the underwriting process. We also have some metrics around the individual's clients with us currently, and we're able to present that to them as well. The second dashboard that I'd like to show you today, we created an actual tab or visual force page here in Salesforce for it. This may not look like a Tableau dashboard, but it actually is. It's essentially a portal page that was actually built in Tableau. What we wanted to do with this is kind of provide a curated list of reports or dashboards that exist on our on-premise server, easily accessible from within SalesLink, but the list is curated to the actual SalesLink profile or role of the individual. So what a specific sales vice president will see here is a list of reports that are of specific interest or utility to him and or her in their role. What I might see or someone internal to our home office might see are reports that are maybe more broad to assist us in supporting the field. So we will get an entirely different curated list. So how this works underneath the covers is very simple. We have an Excel file that basically itemizes the SalesLink or Salesforce roles, and then we assign them kind of to common roles for which we want to show common curated lists of content. We then have a tab that also determines the categories that each of those constituencies will see. So by categories, I mean these blocks, these colored blocks up here at the top. And then last, we actually have a list of the actual individual report URLs in the Excel spreadsheet with some information about them, how we want to list the titles, who actually is the owner or contact of that report, and some XY axis information that is then used by the Tableau workbook. Some of that additional information that you saw, if I hover, is shown in the tooltip, and that'll give a brief description of what the report or workbook contains, who the developer or owner of it is, and how to reach them, and also a hyperlink so that the individual can email them if they have a question about the report. They still have the option of going directly to our on-premise Tableau server to retrieve reports. This is just an easy way, again, to in an effort to manage the amount of content that we have out on our Tableau server, which can get to be overwhelming. This provides a very succinct list of the most commonly used and most important reports to them. Again, underneath the covers, again, the Excel spreadsheet is what's used as the data source. The actual categories are actually shapes that come in from that one tab and are mapped here. Give me a second. And the underlying hyperlink works very similar to the one that we discussed in the contacts page. So again, within the visual force page, there is a URL that goes out to the Tableau portal workbook, what we call a landing page. Again, it has an embedded parameter, and what's passed to it, again, is the SalesLink profile of the particular user that has logged into Salesforce. So I think that covers what I had hoped to show you today. I hope that was helpful. In the future, we'd like to obviously expand the amount of content that we're presenting to our financial professionals. We'd also like to further integrate this information into our Salesforce mobile application. Those are future hopes, initiatives that we'd like to do. At this point, Stephen, I'd be happy to take any questions.
All right, great. Thanks, Sheila. If anybody has any questions, please just send them using the Q&A feature. But while we're waiting for any questions to come in, I've got a couple, Sheila. Have you seen like a big uptick in like Tableau user adoption from this, or even just an uptick in engagement with your Salesforce?
I definitely. What we've seen is we initially released this at a sales conference in January, and we definitely noticed an uptick at that time in the amount of reports that were being accessed from that landing page or portal page that I was showing you. We definitely did see that, especially among constituents that had not, we had a previous tab here that looked nothing like this and was very restricted in content. We noticed a lot of individuals who had not previously used that. We started to see an uptick in the usage of it and in the reports. Also, we've had a lot of interest in some of the metrics under the contacts. Specifically, we have a tab here that again speaks to clients and for the in-force book of information that a particular advisor has with us. They've been very interested in this because the way they got this previously was to call somebody and sit in a queue and wait for it, sometimes for weeks, for somebody to send them a pile of Excel spreadsheets. So it's been very well received in that respect.
That's great. We've got a couple questions that have come in. The first one is from Joe, who wants to know, are there any special Tableau server licensing requirements to embed dashboards in Salesforce?
That's a great question. I will say that our individuals who are using Salesforce and are using this information are all licensed Tableau server users. And we do have a chargeback model here at Prudential that, depending on their level of usage, there is a chargeback per user to cover the cost of our server license. In addition, the authentication, the ability to get to this dashboard is all handled on the Tableau server side. So we use Kerberos as our authentication model along with Active Directory. So if an individual does not have a Tableau server account, even though this information is presented in Salesforce, they won't be able to get to it. They won't be able to see it. They actually have to be licensed as a server user having an account on our on-premise server.
Great. And I think you answered Kim's question, which was, does each Salesforce user need to have a Tableau license? And I think the answer for that one is yes, they need to be a Tableau server user. The cost associated with that is obviously going to depend on the type of Tableau server license that you have. Whether you have one of the legacy core-based license or the newer subscription model with the user-based licensing.
And I can speak for us, we do have the legacy core-based model.
Okay, great. All right, and then we've got one more question from Ronald. It says, Salesforce allows you to access your data so that you can create Tableau dashboards. How do you access the data? Is it a data dump out to a flat file, or do you connect to a server?
Yeah, so we actually do a data dump. There's a data staging tool that our Salesforce application team actually created a data stage utility that dumps the data out that we need. We then pick it up and actually load it into a Tableau data extract, and that's what's used as the back end to this specific contact metrics dashboard that you're seeing.
All right, great, thanks. Let's see, there's no more, oh, we just got one more question in. Does this help them focus on what customers prioritize for daily interaction?
Yes, yes, absolutely. I think it goes both ways. I think it helps them identify particular individuals that they might want to reach out to, or they are regional sales vice presidents might use some of these reports that are shown on the portal page to identify financial advisors that they want to reach out and contact for whatever reason, to promote sales, to move some things that are in underwriting through the process faster. So there's those sorts of conversations. On this end, I think when they're coming at it, when they're going to meet with a particular individual, this here gives them information on that individual immediately to let them know, all right, these are the sales that this particular financial advisor has done with us in the prior year and year to date. Here's any pending in underwriting information that they have. Here's their book of in-force, their client base with us. So kind of from both perspectives, I think it's helpful.
Great, thanks. Okay, we got a question that just came through chat. How is the dashboard integrated with Salesforce? Is there any development required at Salesforce end to integrate the report in a page or in a block in Salesforce?
So my understanding, and I'll confess that I had partners on the Salesforce side who assisted me with that piece of it. My understanding is it's just defining a visual force page, and then within that page, the URL to the specific Tableau workbook is embedded into that iframe. There may be some light code that was used to kind of maybe parse out, for example, here for the landing page, there's some special characters embedded within the Salesforce profile, in our case, in our installation. So I think there might have been some light code in the visual force page that actually created some escape characters where they were necessary. But other than that, my understanding is really nothing more than that to integrate it within Salesforce.
Yeah, and I will, just one thing that you can find some more documentation on, there is, you can embed using the iframe approach. There's also a Tableau Salesforce Canvas adapter that allows you to embed visualizations in a visual force page. And from the reviews of documentation that I've done, the syntax there is pretty simple as well. That route does take a little bit more to set up. You've got to have some additional servers set up so that the Salesforce server can talk to the Tableau server and this Canvas adapter. But that's something else that you can Google and get some documentation on. So that looks like the last question. So if there are any more questions, we can come back at the very end after we've addressed any questions from Sarah's presentation. So with that said, we'll go ahead and pass it over to Sarah. And thanks very much for sharing, Sheila.
My pleasure. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Stephen. Let me share my screen here. Can you hear me okay? Yes. Okay, great. All right. So thank you for having me today. I'm excited and always love to share kind of our journey or our story of using Tableau here at American Family. I've been with American Family for over 20 years, but it's really in my current role in the business enablement team that I've been in for about 3 years, where I have really been able to thrive and enjoy Tableau as part of my job. Prior to being in this position, I was a metrics and data analyst within our life insurance division. So I really know firsthand what it feels like to be an analyst and struggling to be able to wrangle data and really do deep dive analytics and share that information out with our end users. So in my current role in the business enablement team, we do just that. We enable the business, so analysts like I used to be successful in whatever type of analytics they need to do. And that can mean helping them find the data that we have at American Family, understand it, and where I sit is really on the access to tools perspective. So Tableau is one of our core BI tools that we support, and that's really my baby. So anything related to Tableau usually starts with me, and I support all of our users from whatever perspective they need so that, again, they can be successful. So today I thought I would just do a share out on how we use Tableau and how that journey has evolved. We support 2 different environments here at American Family. The first is our internal and corporate environment, and that is something that started about 3 years ago. I was part of the initial team that said, as an analyst, hey, we struggle to find a way to do analytics, to do data discovery type of activities using our current tool set. We need something like Tableau. And there were several other analysts throughout the company who were saying the same thing. We were all buying individual licenses. As soon as we realized that, we thought, you know, we should really come together and figure out if this makes sense for the organization as a whole. So we really developed this grassroots initiative to support just that type of thing, analytical and data discovery. It wasn't necessarily about, you know, regular reporting or operational management, and that certainly came with it, but the core use case was analytical usage and data discovery. That environment is, just technically speaking, we have one physical machine, it's an 8-core server. We manage that environment pretty much exclusively within the business. In terms of IS support for that, we have our server administrator and myself, as well as a few other backups to myself and the server admin. But otherwise, the business really owns and manages their dashboards, their data, and we want it that way. It's self-service analytics, really, for the operational and any usage across the organization internal to American Family. We implemented a decentralized governance model, and that's just how we say, again, it's really all in the business. Change to production, quality checking, data management, all of that, while IS has support roles, it's really owned, and it's up to the business to vet those, vet the data and do quality checking and release those to the users that are appropriate. We've grown from 67 desktop licenses when we first went live in 2014 to now we're at 266. And that group is across many divisions across the company, which I'll show you in a minute. We have 116 server projects to support our uses. That does include both production and sandbox type of projects. So our model for change of production is really all developers have access to a sandbox project. There's really no viewers or interactors in those projects. It's just their development space, so they can do testing and share with other editors. When it's ready and been tested and they feel it's good to go for production, then they would reach out to a couple of key users within their division who are allowed to promote to the production environment. And so really that takes, again, that formal change of production process in a traditional sense of the word, where something would be passed to IS to release, and now they can do that within the business. So that's just at a high level, our internal and corporate environment. Then we flip over and we also have a secondary Tableau environment for our agents. And this is really new for us. We just implemented that last year. It was really developed with the intention of giving our agents better insight into the health of their agency. Before they really needed to go to a multitude of reports and Excel workbooks and business objects reports and anything under the sun, including any manual reports they created themselves in their agencies to make sense of their business. And we recognize that as a problem. So this agency environment was really built with that intention, and I'll give you more detail and show you an example of that later in the presentation. That environment is 3 virtual machines with 24 cores. Wanted high availability with automatic failover. The use case for this is much more direct operational, includes key performance indicators and everything that they really need to have access to in order to manage their business. We also implemented for this environment a portal similar to, not within Salesforce, but within a web environment, and that's what I'll show you in a little bit as well. We knew that our agents, we didn't want to have them navigate through the server environment. We wanted a much more seamless and user-friendly front end that meant something to them in the context that they live in. So we did develop a portal for that environment. And I said it's a much more highly governed environment with a much more structured change to production process. We've tried to streamline it and still not make it cumbersome and make it flexible for the business, but we still recognize that there was a need to make sure that it was, going through a formal process before it was released to the agents. We do have business authors that manage the content in terms of development, again, high availability and structured governance policies, with IS doing the final publishing, and really that's myself and my coworker do the final release to production in that environment. We are in 10.2 for both our server and our desktop. We try to stay reasonably current, and that is fairly uncommon sometimes with big organizations, and American Family is not different in that regard, where we're often in other tools can get pretty far behind in releases. So that's one of our successes, I would say, with Tableau, is we've been able to stay reasonably current and get the benefits out of that. So looking at our internal corporate environment, again, the one that's really used internally, not by our agents, that was implemented back in 2014. This was, like I said, really a grassroots initiation by the business, but it was a collaboration with the business and IS or IT in terms of the governance we wanted to set forth and any processes we need to put in place in terms of getting access and how we'd use our Active Directory integration and all of that. That was a really great collaboration and very iterative, that we were able to move things fairly quickly along and change as we go, as we learned more about how a tool like Tableau would fit into our corporate landscape. We had a core set of initial users, which really was that grassroots team. So I mentioned earlier that myself and many other people from across the organization already had installed individual Tableau licenses and were working with it. So we leveraged that initial expertise that those people had gained and brought those together to say, how can we expand this and make this more of an enterprise-wide tool, and what processes are needed. So those core initial users really helped to set the stage for moving ahead. And we've seen gradual maturity and some really great internal community building, which we'll talk about in a little bit too. So we had that soft launch with that grassroots team. That team tested out the processes, again, in terms of how we would do change to production. We decided to go with 2 projects, one, the sandbox type of project, and then moving to a production project. See if that even worked for us. That was one recommendation to us. Did it make sense, yes or no? Any security e-forms we needed to create, all of those things, and kind of built that out so we have a somewhat structured and tested out process before we went fully launched across the organization. When we did that, it was slow maybe in the beginning, I would say, but it didn't take long before everyone wanted a Tableau license, and we really had to manage that and figure out the best way to assess who should really have it and what is the best use case for Tableau versus maybe some of our other BI tools at American Family. So here's just a snapshot of the different departments and or divisions at American Family that are using Tableau. Some certainly more than others, and they have different levels of number of desktop editors across them. But I'm sure many of you on the line have similar departments in your organization, and we are definitely leveraging Tableau for many different reasons in the different teams. So for example, you'll see the IS division, our IT. We've seen an influx, particularly lately, in editor requests from the IT division, not in terms of doing development for the business. That's something we've definitely tried to stay away from. We want the business to be their own developers within Tableau, but from the perspective of IT wanting to understand more about what IT does. So project management has been a big one. How can we understand our resource allocations? Are our projects on time? All of those types of things for project management, so we can get a better handle on maybe being more effective and finding opportunities for improvement. Within our sales division and our customer support, how are our customer care centers doing? The call centers, how long are people waiting on the phones? Which representatives are doing better than others based on survey data? All of those types of things are things we're doing within Tableau to better understand our business. Customer analysis. Then within the lines like the life insurance division, personal lines, and commercial farm ranch, really understanding product management, which products are doing the best in terms of sales and retention and longevity of the customer and the products themselves. So lots of use cases within our internal environment, too many to list them all, but it's been great to see us mature over time. So a few successes from that internal and corporate environment. Because this was our first implementation, some of these do definitely translate into the agency environment as well, which we'll talk about next. But really we implemented, one of the successes was our implementation of what we call our Tableau Analytics Advisory Group. And this is really kind of like a center of excellence in terms of Tableau at American Family. We have representation from across the divisions that attend. Right now we have bi-weekly meetings, and we really talk about what we can do to better support their divisions in Tableau. So it's not all falling on me, it's actually living and breathing within the business where they're doing the work. And again, that's by design. We want the business to feel ownership and have as much ability to do whatever they need from day one. So that group, again, we meet bi-weekly. We talk about processes that need to be improved. For example, if the process we have in place for security access, like I mentioned earlier, if that is not going well or it's taking too long, what are opportunities? What are new ways we could do it? Another hot topic is what we like to say, project proliferation. We feel like our projects, the number of projects we have on server is growing and ever growing, and do we need to worry about that? What would be different models for how we would use projects or access to those projects? Workbook level security versus project security. So really talking through those types of things, and if there are ways we can make the experience better for both our editors and our end consumers on the server. That group also really is the core group that helps plan and support any user engagement activities. So we plan user group events specific to American Family, internal. We host twice a week doctor sessions to support editors in whatever they need. Those have been widely successful. We have, it's been a very rare occasion where nobody comes in terms of a patient. We always have 2 doctors in the room, and those are managed primarily by the people who are in the analytics advisory group I spoke about earlier. But a lot of time it's, standing room, several users in the room asking questions. So that's really great to see, and it gets people engaged. And it's not always even the doctors answering the questions. It's other patients who are waiting who say, hey, I did that too. This is how I found it, to work for me. So it's been great and very helpful for the doctors, and myself included, to really see and experience how people are leveraging Tableau throughout the organization, and how we can learn from each other. And that's really enabled an engaged user community, like we haven't seen with some of our other, not even BI, but just general tools and software at American Family. They've been so successful that a couple of our other tools have started having doctor sessions as well. So I guess that's a good sign. Another success is really just the quarterly server and desktop upgrades that I mentioned earlier. We're not always on top of releases for all products, and so it's been great that we've been able to budget for that and plan some time for it. I will say that we can attribute a lot of that to pretty successful upgrades. We've had a few hiccups that we've had to work through, but I don't think that's uncommon. And they've been really quick and easy to install, and so we've been fortunate to be able to maintain being fairly current. Of course, Tableau is always releasing new things, and so it's hard to be right on top of it. And we like other people to work some of the bugs out first. Last but not least is really streamlined processes and updates for reporting and metrics. As I'm sure many of you on the line can relate to, before Tableau, I mean, there was just so much work that was being done in Excel, and Excel workbooks with 30 tabs that would have VLOOKUPs to reference everything else, and all of that manual effort that, moving that into a Tableau type format, not only does it streamline that process for the creation and refreshing of the extracts and all of that good stuff, but obviously the end use of those reports is so much better because we're able to make it visually appealing and actually telling a story as opposed to just rows and columns of Excel numbers, or just basic non-interactive charts. So we've just really seen some great successes in the internal environment, which is part of the reason why we wanted to use Tableau as well for the agency environment. So moving on to that, so again, this agency environment, totally separate Tableau instance for us, implemented last year, really came about when we realized and came to the recognition of the struggle that the agents and their leadership faced in understanding the health of their agencies. It's not just about how much are they selling. It's not just about how much money are they bringing in. It's about how are they doing as business owners, and how is the staff that they have helping them be successful. Any kind of question that they have to be a better and more effective business owner, and not just, I don't mean just a salesperson, but that's often how it's thought of. So we wanted to give them what would really help them in their day-to-day life as a business owner. There were some early estimates given that our sales leadership and or their assistants were spending up to 24 hours a month across 140 people just trying to find the data to make sense of their business, looking at different reports. I mean, as a company, we gave them tons of information, but it was all over the place. Lots of great individual reports, but somebody needs to pull that together. So people were doing that. And if we knew that if we could streamline that and give them a one-stop shop and an easy place to go to understand their business, we could easily see a $1 million cost savings. So that was really the goal, right? Is to help, not just the cost savings, but to help them and make people be more effective in their use of their time. So we did an assessment of the options that might meet the needs for what the agents would need, and did decide to go with Tableau. Like I said, having a successful instance already in the internal environment helped, and knowing that we already had knowledge and infrastructure in terms of just using Tableau at American Family helped as well. So really we started with just an initial development of one key dashboard that was related to our new business production, to the sales activity that was going on in the agency, and that was really in about the fall. And once we got that to a pretty good spot, we invited about 20 agents who are part of we call them the field involvement team, and they're hand-selected to be part of this team, and we reach out to them with ideas and review, and it's a privilege to be part of the group, and they get to provide feedback and kind of shape things that will be processes and tools and whatnot that will shape the agent's life as an agent. So we got those agents involved and gave them access to that dashboard and basically just said, have at it. What do you like? What do you not like? And the feedback was immense. We didn't have to ask twice. They gave us great information, and that really shaped how the dashboard would be developed over the next several months. We used an online collaboration tool for them to be able to provide that feedback. We could respond immediately, and it was just a great way to work together and not develop something internally and then just throw it over to the agents and hope it worked for them. We needed this to be successful, and that was a great way to make sure it happened. We had full rollout in December of 2016 with a multitude of dashboards, and it's only continued to grow since then. So here is just a snapshot of just that first page, and it doesn't look like much, but similar to what Sheila said earlier, we wanted to keep it very simple. So this is just the agency summary page. It's the initial landing page providing high-level snapshot details and defaults to the appropriate view for whoever the user is logging into that URL. So again, this is a portal. We are using the iframe option to embed the Tableau visuals. And each of these sections normally would have numbers shown, but I blocked them out. I took a live snapshot this morning. So you'll see, for example, in the revenue section in the top left, right underneath that YTD June 2017, it would give the year-to-date revenue for whatever is appropriate for the user logging in. So if I'm an agent logging in, it'll show me my exact revenue, what my prior year was, that's the PY, and then the percent change. And then the same for all of those sections. So the type of information we're sharing with them, again, related to revenue, premium, new business production, items in force, their retention, as well as any campaigns that are going on that are specific to them. On the right-hand side, you'll see we have some global filters, allowing an agent wouldn't necessarily see this, but a corporate user or maybe a regional sales leader, somebody like that would have some options to be able to navigate to see different levels of summarization. So either the individual agent level going down that far, or if you want a summarized view for the West region or a particular sales state or a particular district, you could do that using those filters. The links across the top then are different drill down reports that go into more detail for each of these categories. So you'll see revenue, premium, items. Production is related to that new business production, as well as some other dashboard options, quotes, campaign and awards, and some mapping. So you'll notice we have a lot of dashboards that maybe aren't highlighted in the actual visuals in the middle of the screen, and that's by design. We didn't want to overload the dashboard with too many metrics, too many numbers, too many places to go. So the other pieces are important, but it's just navigationally available as opposed to having a high-level summary on this page. Within the secondary views, within those additional pages, they have sometimes 2 and 3 levels deep where they might start at a high level of saying, what is the new business production and show the trend over time, changing date parameters to say, show me year over year versus year to date, all of those types of really cool functionality, as well as then next level deep. So if they want to say, that's great that I sold 100 policies last month, what were those policies? What was the policy makeup? And so really giving them truly self-service analytics within the agents, but guided analytics. And that's the term we like to use here is we're not just going to give them the big Excel dump file because A, they don't have the time to do it. Let's give them some guidance as to what to look for. So a few successes about my dashboard, similar to what Sheila shared. We've really seen great feedback from our agents. On the bottom of the screen, you see a few of the quotes that we've gotten in, and they literally do not stop. I mean, it's within every couple of weeks I'm forwarded just a reminder of, you know, here's another quote we got from somebody or another message, unsolicited, great feedback. So it's really great to see, and it's been great to be part of that effort. So the key successes, I think, to that effort was, again, I can't stress enough how much the collaboration between business and IT and just sitting at the table together and figuring things out has been so instrumental for all of our Tableau efforts. Iterative implementations and issue resolution. I mean, all of the dashboards that are embedded within the My Dashboard, it's all been over time. I don't think there's been a week that we haven't released new functionality of some kind into the dashboard. So it's that quick. And it's in a traditional sense for IT supported and any kind of project to be able to make full-scale releases available to 3,000 plus agents that quickly has just been really great for us. Business-driven development, letting them just run with it. They know the business, they know the agents, and they know their data. Let's let them develop it the way they know needs to work. And getting those agents involved has been key. And then again, I already talked about the feedback. A few of the challenges that we've had. Certainly performance tuning. Early on, we had some pretty slow dashboards, and our those agents that were involved said, you got to fix this. Like, this is the best, great information, but if it's going to take too long to load, I'm too busy as an agent. I've got people coming in to see me. I've got appointments. I need this to be fast. So we worked hard on that and really looked at our data sources and finding ways to optimize our data and how we could make things faster. And we've gotten a lot better over time, and there's always work to do there. Change to production processes. We knew we wanted to have a fairly rigorous process, at least from the beginning, to see how this was all going to go. We knew there would be a lot of iterations. So that's scary from an IT perspective. People say, what, every week? How are we going to manage that? So we've worked hand in hand. We figured out even little things from how we get notified when things are ready. What kind of release schedules do we want to put in place? And that has just been development over time and learning as we go and being willing to say what we set out from the beginning isn't working, we need to shift gears. The portal integration, that was new to us at American Family. We always used the Tableau server, and that worked for the use cases we were using, but we knew we needed that for the agents. We needed to get some staff that understood all of that and could really become our experts in integrating with the portal. That's also added a layer of complexity in our testing and releases. Not everything lives within the Tableau workbook now, so I can't just test in server or in desktop. We really need to go through a full promotion cycle to make sure it's working within the portal environment, as well as row-level security, making sure that we have the right data showing for the right people, because we certainly don't want our customer data available to people who shouldn't be seeing it, and all of that good stuff. On our horizon, some things we're looking at. Right now we're doing some proof of concepts using the web edit functionality. It's not something we've leveraged in the past. So a couple of different use cases there. Underwriting and analysts would like to get into it, as well as our state analysts that really support the field. They'd like to take the My Dashboard data and really be able to do deeper dive analytics than what we provide within that environment. So those are two big efforts right now. We're also looking at rolling out My Dashboard to agency staff. Right now, just the agents themselves can log in, but of course their support people do a lot of work for them and they need to help. So that's a pretty big effort to make sure we're building it out so that they can only see their agents' data, particularly for staff people that might work for multiple agents and things like that. That will increase that environment to approximately 10,000 users, so that's a pretty big scaling project. Looking at desktop monitoring so we can better understand our user base with our desktop licenses and be more effective with them. I'm super excited about certified data sources coming out in 10.4. Of course, Tableau Conference is always awesome. And we're also planning our first ever Tableau Day later this year. That's very exciting. And that's all I have for you.
All right, great. Thanks, Sarah. You've already got one question in here. If anybody else has any more, please just send them through the QA feature. So the question we have, other than the challenges you already addressed, any distinct or notable challenges with integrating with policy, billing, and claims processing systems? And then there's a second part too, any notable challenges to convincing management that Tableau reports would be superior to reports previously provided by processing systems?
Oh, that's a good question. So I'll start with the second one, then I might have you repeat the first. So yes, certainly some challenges in getting some of our management and just consumers in general to take that leap and move more towards the Tableau environment. People don't always like change. They're used to the report they've gotten for the last 10 years, being from those processing systems or just other reports that we've always developed for them. So definitely struggled with that. Sometimes we've developed a Tableau dashboard and we kind of give them both views for a while. So we might keep the old legacy report turned on or creating it for a little bit so that we can show them the benefits of, but this is what Tableau can do. In some instances, it just makes more sense in terms of cost savings and time management and all of that, where we just tell them that this is what's happening. And I say we, that's really not me, that's the business themselves working within their teams to make those recommendations and changes. So that is definitely a struggle. I don't know that we've mastered that, and yeah, unfortunately I don't have a great answer for that. The first question was, remind me?
Any distinct or notable challenges with integrating with policy, billing, and claims processing systems?
Nothing that I specifically know of. We do use, our analysts do use SAS quite a bit to pull their data and integrate when they need to pull from multiple systems. So they've done a lot of their data prep activities within SAS. That's what they know and they've been using for a while. So they'll do that, and then we connect Tableau up to that SAS data set. As far as specific systems, I'm not, to be honest, exactly sure if there's been any specific problems. There hasn't been anything brought to my attention.
All right, great, thanks. Let's see, no more questions now, but you can continue to send those in. We're getting close on time, so Erin, maybe we'll let you do the closing announcements real quick. And then Sarah, if any questions come back, we'll address those at the end. But if not, thanks so much for sharing with us today.
You're welcome, thank you.
Yes, okay, so I'm Erin Gain, and I am the second co-leader for the virtual user group for the insurance industry. So we want to say again, thank you, Sheila and Sarah, for presenting and for your company's Prudential and American Family Insurance. That was awesome. For those of you that are still with us, we have a recording of this that will be available to you. We'll send that out in an email with a survey. So with that email, we'll want to see what you took away from this and what topics you might want to, that might be further helpful to you. So any feedback, further questions, anything like that are totally welcome. Furthermore, if you'd like to present a topic or a suggestion for a speaker or a different topic, also let us know in a response to that email. We're aiming to host the next webinar within the next quarter or so, so hopefully you can join us for that so we can discuss more Tableau topics relevant to the insurance industry. Great, so Sarah, I do have another question actually. So what is your Tableau day? I know we're going a minute over, but I'm really interested in what, you know.
Absolutely, I'm happy to answer that. So really just a day dedicated to all things Tableau. So we're still working on what the agenda might look like, but it'll be some kind of initial keynote presentation, and it would be targeted at certainly our desktop authors, but really management as well, to help encourage them to want to see things in Tableau and to help bridge that gap from old legacy type reporting and moving them into this century. So really giving them that keynote and inspirational type of message, and then probably some breakout sessions specific to maybe even whether it's hands-on or just some targeted training opportunities, share outs on success stories and actually walking people through dashboards and development. We've done those types of things here before, but not in a whole day forum, and they've been really successful. Things like a Tableau makeover, where an author will say, you know what, I developed this dashboard, but it's not super fantastic. let's get people in a room and brainstorm and figure out better ways to show this data. And that's been really fun and engaging for our authors to collaborate and help each other and see each other's data and that type of thing. So really just all about training and inspiration, a mini Tableau conference here at AmFam.
Neat. Very cool. Do we have any other last minute questions or anything? Chat? Doesn't look like it. All right. Well, Stephen and I would like to thank you all for coming, and thank you again, Sheila and Sarah, for your time.
Yeah. Thanks, everybody.